Hi, welcome to Wrestling Tea Tarot, the channel where we look behind the booking, beyond the kayfabe, try to find some truth in the world of professional wrestling. I am Jude, here with my partner Calypso Vibes, and today we are going to take a look at the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. I don't know that there's anything particular going on in Ric Flair news, but we have found a number of folks in our comments who we do appreciate requesting that we look at some of the legends. And boy, if Rick's not one of the first names that jumps out, then I don't know who will be. So we're going to take a look at Ric Flair. I imagine that Rick may be feeling a little heavy today, just one day after the news of superstar Billy Graham's passing. And we're gonna take a look, see where Rick's heart is, sort of where just his overall emotional state, see if there's anything brewing, any tea that maybe we don't know about. And yeah, take a look at behind the scenes at one of the all-time greats. So first of all, Ric Flair is a Pisces, which has certain implications about it in terms of Pisces are emotional, they're creative, not always super in tune with reality, and Rick didn't allow, let's say, the bounds of what people think reality is to necessarily have to be his reality. So, House 12, Pisces, ruled by Neptune, sacrifice an inner life. Unconscious, the 12th house refers to the unconscious and to things beyond the physical plane. It has been called the house of karma. If you know much about Ric Flair's life, you have to think that karma plays heavily because his has been a life of so many ups and downs where, he wasn't always the best guy, right? He wasn't a great dad, wasn't a great husband. Not really known for helping the boys come up in the business, but he absolutely gave a lot of himself to the business, and he has reaped great successes and great failures over the course of his long life. And he's about 74 now, I believe. Manifestation and proliferation also for Pisces. You are optimistic, sociable, and amusing. It is never a dull moment with you. However, your attractivity can also be deceitful and superficial. Again, we know Rick had enormous charisma, still does have enormous charisma, right? But we also know that Rick couldn't really keep long-term friends in the business, right? Something always fell out. You have to wonder, where is the line between the Nature Boy Ric Flair and the man Ric Flair? And by most accounts, there wasn't one, right? But his portrayal of himself was absolutely made for TV, whereas some of his internal feelings may have been a little darker, had more depth that sometimes wasn't great for his interpersonal relationships. Next, his life path number is 5. This is based on when he was born. Life path 5 is the free spirit, adventure, movement, and change. Find some kind of daily structure that works for you. I find that interesting because Rick, known to, live a certain lifestyle, enjoyed the nightlife, enjoyed the ladies, and yet was always in the gym on time in the morning, always showed up for his shows on time. He had some sort of a routine that he could work while still being this free spirit. And the fact that he's a water sign and a life path 5, there's no containing Ric Flair. Never has been, and for the rest of his life, which, Gesundheit, may he continue to live a life of, wellness and happiness. There's no reining him in. I'm going to look quickly at his power number and destiny number, but the fact is, this is based on his adopted name, Richard Morgan Fleer, and you have to kind of wonder. I think that his power number 3, based on his name, reevaluate what it means to be creative, expressive, full of joy. Step into your creativity. Enjoy socializing and express with joyful and artful communication. I don't know that he always felt joy, because again, we know that he's had a lot of ups and downs in his life, but that character had a lot of joy in his boisterousness, and his destiny number, the destiny number based on the name, the power number based on a combination of things. Your destiny wants you to discover the hidden truths and philosophy of life, teach others the true way of life, because you are destined to become a teacher of nature, like the nature boy, and life. And I don't know how much of a teacher he was, but as an example and a model that people tried to model themselves after, that is absolutely true. Now, I wonder, because this was a name that he was, this is not the name that he was given at his actual birth, I wonder if he had remained Fred Phillips instead of Richard Morgan Fleer and eventually Ric Flair, who would he have been? But I think the numerology here really seems to play out for who we've got. Let's jump into the Oracle cards. We're going to start with the Shadows and Spirits deck. And I want to remind everyone, everything we talk about here is allegedly and for entertainment purposes. We don't know Rick. We don't know his life beyond what is sort of public knowledge, and we'll absolutely talk about those things as it's relevant. But we're going to try to find what the cards have to tell us and interpret those as best we can. Again, as we look at the Nature Boy. This deck is talking a lot, which means I'm probably only going to shuffle through once more. I think we've got enough. And ooh. Well, there's a couple cards that I'm familiar with. Okay, Calypso, you ready?
1 second.
Okay, the first card up is Defiance, and you see the raven here, solitary on the perch. Raven's absolutely a symbol of occult things. It's also one of Odin's symbols, so it's a very powerful, familiar to have. In terms of Defiance, I think Rick absolutely marched to his own beat, right? He did things his way, even though he was often with a faction, because famously the Four Horsemen that he was the anchor of, he still stood alone because he was separate and sort of above the rest of the men in that faction. So Defiance is a card of resistance, will, and disobedience. It means it's time to stand your ground, resist going on with others if their views, opinions, or belief do not line up with your own. This does not mean you have to engage in conflict or arguments, but do not conform to make other people happy. Be true to yourself. I think that's true of Ric Flair as a young man in the business, and I think it's still true of Rick now, because even here in his later years, he speaks his mind on his podcast. He's not afraid to give controversial opinions. He has his cannabis business, and he's
And wings.
And wings, thank you. He's not afraid to go after his bags in the way that he wants to, partner with whom he wants to, and do really whatever it takes for him to remain a cultural icon. Next up is the Mischief card, and you see the three black kittens there. Rick was obviously known to get up to his share of mischief, whether we're talking about the plane ride from hell or just his kind of fast and loose lifestyle or ribbing with the boys. But this is about misbehavior, curiosity, and playfulness. Mischief is mild misbehavior. Someone in your life could cause a bit of mischief for you, or perhaps you are feeling mischievous. Tap into your playful nature to dispel boredom. Let your natural curiosity bring a little fun into your life. Reclaim your childlike sense of humor. Let go of self-consciousness. Again, to a degree, this absolutely fits in with his creative nature as a Pisces, his free spirit nature of that Life Path 5, and this Defiance card, right? Again, Rick created his own success and did things his own way.
And he's always up to no good.
And he is always up to no good.
Bill started making trouble in my neighborhood.
Right.
He's definitely that guy. Sorry, I'm trying to find it.
There it is. Okay, next up, otherworldly, balance, spirit, guidance. The otherworld is the unseen realm. Otherworldly beings are divine guides. We are infinite beings in finite bodies. Create a balance of worldly and otherworldly elements in your life. Take time for spiritual practices. Connect to spirit, angels, and guides through prayer and meditation. Ask for divine guidance. Accept it with gratitude. You know what? If this is factual,
he's also too materialistic.
I'm happy to see it, right? Because we know about the carnal side of Rick and that materialistic side. That's been his image for 40 years, 50 years in the business. Is Rick taking time to connect with the spiritual side? I would like to think so. We also know that, what is it, about almost 10 years ago now, right? 2013 or 2014, that Rick lost his youngest son, Reed. Is Reed's spirit with Rick? You know, does he connect to him? I don't know. He has said, Rick himself, in his biography, that he essentially stayed drunk for most of that first 5 years. And, you know, that's absolutely going to dampen his spiritual awareness, dampen his connection to spirit around him. But maybe since then, you know, his health scares of 2017, 2018, I don't know. But if this is true, then I think that's great. This also has the air sign symbol on it, I suppose, because of spirit. I don't, I wish I knew if, Wendy, for example, who they've split up now, but if there's a prominent air sign in his life, Charlotte's an Aries, right? So Charlotte's a fire sign.
I don't know what all his other children are.
Right.
Because he has a really close relationship with his oldest daughter.
Megan,
yes.
Next up, reincarnation. Right, and you see the tree there, so this implies some grounding in earth as well. Rebirth, integration, changeable. Reincarnation is rebirth. Allow the wisdom you have gained from the past to be your foundation for the future. Look at your life and see all that you have overcome. See who you truly are in the present. Reinvent yourself by reintegrating the old and the new. You are fluid. Allow yourself to flow and change throughout your lifetime. Hear those words, fluid, flow, and change. Again, that's being a water sign. That's being a free spirit. But those words implied by this card of reinventing yourself, learning from your past, combine that with the otherworldly card, I think, you know, the Ric Flair we have now is the sum of of all of his past experiences. I mean, if we are living a self-aware life, we should all be the sum of our past experiences to a degree. And again, maybe in these later years, maybe getting to view the business through Charlotte's experience, or I should say Ashley's experience, because Rick never, not never, but most of the time, if you watch his podcast or anything, he does not refer to his daughter Charlotte Flair as Charlotte, right? He calls her Ashley, which I think is telling, right? He always humanizes her, and maybe that's also a part of him becoming more connected, right? That the business is the business, real life is real life. And you see that over these past few years, especially since she married Andrade, that even Charlotte has been more connected into her reality. You know, she works a Roman Reigns schedule. She shows up, she fights for a belt, and she goes home to keep living her life. So I think that Rick is learning life lessons and is using his past experiences up and down to inform who he is. Next up is the summer card. Inspiration, motion, initiative. Summer is a season of life that can be brief or long term. Summer is the time to burst into life. It's energy, action, initiative. Summer is when seeds planted in spring come to fruition. This can be a tempestuous season. Enjoy the moments of surprise or unpredictability that may come your way. Find inspiration by being spontaneous and seeking out new experiences. He's doing that now, right? We just talked about it when talking about the Defiance and Mischief, that he's living the way he wants to live, right? He's earning money in ways that he chooses. All of that work to become the icon that he is paying off. And we're still talking about being spontaneous and new experiences, right? Ric Flair at 74 years old, by appearances, lives a fuller and more exciting life than a lot of guys, 40, 50 years younger than him. We've got a couple darker cards coming up next. We've got the Magician, which implies magic, talent, transmutation. It's a reminder that you possess all that is needed to work magic in your life. You are in control of your reality, and you have all the necessary components to make your dreams come true. Take any energy, negative energy that others toss your way, self-doubt, negative thoughts, and transmute them into raw creative energy. Do not underestimate yourself. Again, I think that fits in great with these other cards that we've seen, right? Because he's had a lot of negative energy sent his way. He's had a lot of negative experiences, and he is showing a way to transmute that into, his own modern magic, being remaining relevant and continuing to make money. Now, I don't know what his finances are really like these days, and his podcast, it's not unsuccessful, certainly, but for a name as big as Ric Flair's to be attached to it, I don't know. Maybe I would have thought more would have come out of it. But he's running these businesses, and he's continuing to remain relevant. Next up is the Maestro. And if you have watched our Owen Hart video, then we definitely talked kind of in depth about this card: illusion, trickery, and control. The Maestro is a talented performer who uses trickery and charm to subtly control others. When the Maestro appears, consider the possibility that someone in your life may have too much control over you. The Maestro is an expert at trickery and a master of creating illusions. Do not get lost in someone else's world of fantasy. I feel like this Maestro is the same individual in Rick's life as it was in Owen Hart's life. And the person who pulls the strings for a lot of professional wrestlers. And we know that Rick has had a tumultuous past with Vince McMahon, allegedly for entertainment purposes, but there's been plenty said that he's had a lot of ups and downs with Vince. Absolutely give Vince his credit. It sounds like Vince really did help Ric when he was at some low points, and I think Ric Flair is grateful to that. But it's also true that I don't think Ric Flair really likes, how he was used all the time when he was with WWF and WWE. And I sure don't think he likes how Charlotte is used sometimes. I think he was recently very unhappy that Charlotte and Rhea did not have one of the WrestleMania main events, for example, right? That there's someone pulling strings that Ric probably feels has undue or too much control in his life. And the last card, the vigilance card, caution, alert, warning. Vigilance is warning you to watch out for potential danger ahead. Now's the time to pay attention to what is happening around you. You may be approaching unsteady ground. Conflict may arise between you and another. Someone may not have your best interest in mind. Stay alert. I think this has been Ric's karma, right? That he has successes and he's doing pretty well right now, and then the rug gets pulled out from under him in one way or another. I don't know if this is a vigilance towards relationship, especially now that he's has his podcast and he's talking a lot. And unlike when we speak here at Wrestling Tea Tarot, we're speaking allegedly for entertainment purposes. When Ric speaks, he is telling you his experiences and what he knows or feels to be true unapologetically. So the maestro or maestros of the world probably don't take too kindly to that, because Ric has things to say about McMahon. He's got things to say about Bischoff. He's had things to say about AEW. Pretty much, Ric knows literally everyone in and who has been in the business in the last 50 years firsthand. So if Ric starts, letting his mouth flow like the water, that Neptune represents, yes, he can say some dangerous things that people might not like. And the cards are advising that Ric employs some caution, some vigilance. Calypso, what do you think about this first deck?
I think I should no comment.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're just gonna let me shuffle in silence?
For entertainment purposes, yes, and for the safety of myself. And I don't want to get strikes on this channel of anyone trying to sue. But seeing the magician, the maestro, and vigilance, and otherworldly, and mischief can paint a whole different picture. And it's a much darker picture. And I just think that Ric Flair needs to be safe and be careful and watch his mouth and his surroundings and his environment at all times now, right? And those that he plays close to him, right? Because not everyone that's is close is a friend. You got to be careful of them frenemies and who you are drinking, hanging out with. And not everybody has your best interest. I think Ric has made plenty of enemies in the business. I also think seeing the reincarnation says a lot as well. Like, these cards can be read completely different. If you want to be a conspiracy theorist kind of person, there's a lot of conspiracy on the flip side of this reading, right? You can read it from one way, which I appreciate, and I enjoyed the way you read it, and then I'm also saying it from the other side, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna no comment that. Because there's a lot of dark, heavy cards with that defiance and that mischief, and then the magician maestro, which we saw identical in Owen Hart's reading. And then otherworldly, like the other side is trying to tell him chill out, be vigilant. I think he definitely has. And then seeing that card that just fell, like, yeah, buddy. I just think he needs to be careful. I think he's made plenty of enemies. More than friends. And when people feel that you've served your purpose, things happen, right? So that's all I'll say.
All right. Well, thank you for that. While Calypso was giving her read on these cards, I was shuffling
Allegedly
through.
for entertainment purposes.
Thank you. Allegedly for entertainment purposes. I was shuffling through the Lilith deck, and this deck was pretty talkative. Let's see what it had to say. First up is the Enduring. Wisdom, restraint, and balance. Well, Ric's life and fame has absolutely been enduring. I think he's struggled with balance. So maybe, again, the otherworldly and reincarnation cards do indicate that he's seeking that sort of balance. Next is the Web. Destiny, connections, and habits. So destiny, that's like his karma, which we said that both his sign and his life path are heavily influenced by his karma. We know that his habits have been reckless throughout his life. He's been pretty open about his struggles in that regard. And what was the other one? Connections. Well, Calypso was just talking about it, and we've been talking about that, yes, his relationships tend not to be enduring, since we just had the enduring card, and that not everyone who he has these relationships necessarily has his best interests at heart. Next, we've got the Outcast, Forsaken, Rejected, Sinner. Wow. And you see the this dual nature here of the figure that looks like almost a nun's habit with a burning building that appears to be a church in the foreground. I don't know, is he, particularly outcast right now? We know he was let go from WWE. That's what, about 2 years ago now.
But he got brought back in the fold, hence the documentary.
He was brought back into the fold and was, participated. Not only has that documentary, but has participated in some of the A&E work. I think he got some heat for his Ric Flair's last match, right? There was a lot of, I think, fair criticism about it, and he's owned that as well. He's said even on his podcast, look, I know the match wasn't good. What do you want me to tell you? And to some degree, look, he can have his farewell tour however he wants, because he is so loved by the fans, and people will pay their money just to see him in person. And no, yes, this probably isn't going to be, a masterwork of wrestling in the ring. We've got the Crossroads. Oof. All right, that's already got me concerned. Opportunity, indecision, and influence. So those words are not particularly daunting, but the Crossroads is a time of decision. It's also a time of great change, right? Where you can make a 90-degree turn in your life and go off in a completely different direction than is expected. There's, of course, also the legend, for lack of a better word, of meeting a spiritual figure at the crossroads and making dark deals that can take someone who was, let's say, an over heavy, not great worker, not great on the mic, and turn him into the biggest superstar in the world of professional wrestling for a price, right? And if you make a deal at the crossroads, there's always a price. And we have seen through Rick's karma throughout his life what some of those prices have been, and they've been steep. Here in the latter part of his life, we can hope that he finds balance, or is at least seeking balance. But that summer where you reap your benefits, I believe said it can be long or it can be brief and tumultuous. Next up, now I'm going to leave that one for a minute. We'll come back to that. The key: transition, discovery, threshold. Okay, I mean, that fits in perfectly with the crossroads, right? It's a time, a threshold is a doorway. It's a time to pass through. Things can change, transition. We've got the disintegration, fragmentation, breakdown, strength. That's a rough card to see, again, for an older person. We know that Rick has had health troubles. We know that physically he definitely didn't look great during his last match event back last summer, not quite a year ago now. So all of these things that the vigilance card would warn to be cautious about are showing up again here, right? That there's transition coming, that there's disintegration, and finally here we've got the end, which, as you would expect, death, closure, and finality. Look, he's a legend, right? And we love him, but he is a mortal human, we think. So there's only one way all of our stories end. Rick needs to be mindful of his health. If he's on medications, he needs to keep up with his medications. If he has a physical therapy or exercise routine, he needs to keep up with that. I think, know that, he still enjoys his nightlife, right? You'll see him out. See the falling apart card just dropped out of this deck, right? We'll put that over there with disintegration. Ooh, and getting a room card. Let's Calypso, do you want to say anything about those cards? I didn't mean to start talking about the next deck, but they fell out so fast. Move that out the way. I know they're hard to read. But we had the end, the key.
I think there's just a lot of reinforcement with the enduring and I can't see.
The web.
Oof. Destiny, connection, habits. He's tied himself into these habits. Like he's webbed his own self, if you ask me, right? He's put himself in this position and predicament. I think he's endured a lot. Like, right? You see that castle like an empire, right? With this broken, fractured face, right? I think he's endured a lot of public shame, about a lot of public humiliation. Even in WCW, they humiliated him. He's been through a lot. He's been through a lot. The outcast, I told you, I think he's put himself in a predicament where he's ran his mouth and he's gotten on some people's bad side here lately. I'm not shocked by a lot of this, and he's old. His body's breaking down. He's been given a chance. I think when he survived this last kiss with death, and bargain with the crossroads to live a little longer, he was supposed to walk a much more purposeful life.
And he's chosen to disregard that.
And I think whenever we have heart attacks, strokes, it's the universe hitting you hard.
We're not letting all those go, but we'll let this one.
It's the universe hitting you hard saying, wake up. And it's not just the eating right. It's also the wake up. Like, you're not doing what I told you to do. The universe will kick you back on your path.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you want to listen or not, it's a whole total, different story. But we are, whether people ever want to acknowledge or respect it or not, we're supposed to respect nature. We're supposed to respect the law of, the law of nature and the universe, right? And be much more empathetic, giving, and loving. And we're not.
And in Ric's case, where he is both a Pisces and a Life Path 5, right? And we saw the Defiant card and the Mischief card. Yeah, I mean, he's going his own way. And he doesn't care to take life lessons for others because he's had such a full life on his own.
Right, and I don't think he's given back like he should have. Like I said, I think this journey of the rebirth. Oh my God, how did I not put that together with the reincarnation? He had a rebirth. He had a rebirth. He was dead.
I'm not dead yet.
Right. He was declared dead for a while and came back. He had a rebirth. That's that otherworldly in the reincarnation in the crossroads. He was at the crossroads and had the rebirth. No, it makes a lot of sense. See, that's why I said them cards tell so many different stories. It's just based on interpretation, right? There can be many interpretations. It's kind of hard to always, you know what I mean? You can only tell the story as best you can from whichever story speaks to you. But these cards can always tell many stories. But no, I think I'm not, this isn't me by any means saying I think Ric Flair is going to die soon, but I think the universe is warning Ric that, you didn't do what you were supposed to do in that rebirth, right? You were supposed to give back. You were supposed to be much more empathetic, more humble, more giving, less taking, because I think his origin story is take.
Yes. But his
me.
His later career, you can say, wasn't giving, but the business took from him. Like you said, like they humiliated him in WCW. They made him a kicking post for the NWO.
Yes.
McMahon humiliated him in WWE.
Yes.
That everyone took their shots when he was at this low point.
And
he credits Paul
and them for rebuilding him.
Yes. For reminding him, who he is.
Right. But I also think in those moments he could have done so much more. He just doesn't take advantage, I think, of opportunities to just not be about himself, not make everything about himself. He doesn't know how to not do that.
And, to some degree, he saw some of the darkest, the grittiest times of the business, right?
He really did.
Where
he has seen
had
three
to,
generations of gritty business.
You had to fight for every scrap you got.
Absolutely.
And when he finally got it, he said, no, this is my inner circle.
Yeah.
And no one else gets in.
Yeah.
And then karmically he paid for the price for that down the road.
Right. Well, so is Hogan.
Absolutely.
I say this all the time. You don't get blessed.
Yes.
More for being a me guy.
Right. And we are Wrestling Tea Tarot. Thank you for watching this. And I would think the Hogan video will probably be up before this one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Hogan video should be up by the time you are seeing this. If you haven't watched it yet, please do check it out.
I think that's why I love Seth so much, because I feel like Seth gives so much of himself that he deserves to be blessed a lot, right? And Shawn had his redemption story, and Shawn did the opposite. Shawn was Ric Flair in his youth, right?
Yes.
Relapsed, almost died from the party life, the narcotics on his own couch with his baby son to see it, and changed his life. And after that, y'all can say what y'all want about Shawn Michaels, but he lost so much once he came back.
Yes.
He put people over and gave so much of himself. And now he's in NXT giving again.
Because Shawn connected with spirit.
Yes.
And again, he credits his wife for a lot of that.
And it's beautiful.
And that's great. So, yes. So Shawn found that connection with spirit, found that way to balance out the mischief of his youth,
Right.
and become, most people in the business who would be in a position know say a much better man because of it.
Right. And now he's giving back in NXT. And I think that's something Ric Flair was supposed to do with his rebirth. And I just feel like, don't get me wrong, the marijuana and the wings and stuff is cool, but I'm like, what else, Rick? Where's the spiritual, where's the really give back of you, the person, intimately to the business,
Right.
and things like that.
It takes more than, working a match with Jay Lethal and,
Right.
letting Jay Lethal get that rub
Right.
in a losing effort.
Right. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, he's this scares me, these cards, right?
Yeah.
And the disintegration, like, oh Lord.
Right. And again, we already had the falling apart card, which goes perfectly with the disintegration, falling into pieces, all torn up. Gosh, I'm having a hard time where to tackle this, because we've also got envy and depression, right? So Rick is, at a point, allegedly for entertainment purposes, where he's looking at the rest of the landscape of the business or the world in general, right? Is he, I don't know who he's comparing himself to. Does he continue to compare himself to Hogan, since they were really the two pillars of their era of wrestling? He sees Sting is still working, right?
Right.
Sting is still on TV. He doesn't show up every week, but Sting still has a job with a major relevant promotion. And how does Rick feel about all that? We've got the parenting card, which I think is interesting, focusing on your children and co-parenting. As Calypso said, Rick does maintain a good relationship with his oldest daughter, Megan. She even interfered in his last match to Rick's benefit. I think it's reported that he and Charlotte remain close. I don't know, since she's been married, I don't know how tight or not that bond is, but clearly he loves and is very, very proud of Charlotte. He talks about her all the time. And we also know that he struggled and continues to struggle with the loss of his youngest son, Reed, who struggled with a lot of the same demons that Rick did, right? Reed was a Pisces, just like Rick. Reed was a Life Path 9, which means he had very hard lessons to learn. We have seen a number of Life Path 9s in the wrestling business who struggled with dependency issues and lost their lives young because of it. And I'm sure Rick still, to some degree, struggles with the fact that he was not a good parent to his elder kids. We've got the time management cards: stress, busy schedule, rushing. He's doing quite a bit these days, between just social appearances and keeping a few businesses running. I don't know how hands-on he necessarily has to be, but he does have those things as part of his day. And these last three, we're going to lay out all together. Getting a room, hotel, motel, suite, business and pleasure, keeping you a secret, and investigating. This is allegedly for entertainment purposes. I have no idea what's going on, but Rick and Wendy didn't split up for no reason. And I don't think I want to say anything else about that, but Ric Flair and Wendy were such a Cinderella story, because they've had this long relationship from the time that she was, Fifi the French maid and, Rick Rude's valet, all the way through until they finally, when did they get married? In like 2017, 2018? Probably 30 years after, that they were together in the business. And for that relationship, which publicly a lot of people had nice things to say, for that to split up just, in the past year-ish, and then you see this keeping you a secret, getting a room. Again, we know that Ric Flair struggles finding balance between his higher self and his carnal self, and this would indicate that that has not changed. Only 6-7 cards here. Calypso, do you want to add anything? And we're gonna shuffle up this last deck.
Interesting that the children are coming up. That's good. Like, oh Lord. Well, that seems about on par for Rick.
Space Mountain is back open.
Keeping you a secret, huh? And who is watching, observing him? Nope, nothing to say at all. Nope. Nope.
Oh, you're gonna just let me take all the heat on this one, all right?
Yeah, buddy.
Okay.
I definitely think he's envious of his own daughter, though, of Charlotte. The career she's had, the push, the money she makes. The fact she gets to take these breaks that she does and gets paid millions of dollars.
The fact that, someday she's going to be able to retire and still be able to walk and be healthy. Right. We hope. Yeah. All right. Shuffling through this Messenger of the Heart deck. It's a big, heavy deck, so it's a little awkward to shuffle, but we've had one card drop. Let's see if we can get a little bit more before we wrap up. Pull those out because they were trying to fall. There we go. All right, actually ended up with quite a few, so let's jump right in and wrap this up. So far, I think this has been a pretty, those first two decks were very cohesive. The next one kind of worked a little tea into it, but I don't think too much surprising. Yeah, we've got a bunch here, so let's see what we've got. Fairy tale. They think this kind of love only happens in fairy tale stories because to them, you are too perfect to believe it's true. So again, if Rick has a new love interest, he's definitely feeling very captivated by it. New perspective. They've gained a new perspective and now see how they failed you by their own sabotaging behaviors. Again, we saw cards talking about, Rick learning this reincarnation, hopefully applying some of those life lessons. Mixed signals. That cloudy space between hot and cold is their way of telling you they're not totally sure if they're into you or not. Okay, so maybe this fairy tale love is one-sided. Release. When they set you free, they felt the sting from your absence. Don't let their silence fool you. Okay, this one's a very ethereal figure, like with the dove and whatnot. This I feel like might still be the sadness and depression that Rick carries over the loss of Reed. Stone. They are emotionally unavailable. It's for your highest good to move on and find your happiness again. I feel like that's probably Rick himself, who's, he's been through so much. He's ingested so many chemicals. I think to some degree, even though he's a Pisces and they're very emotional people, I think he's hardened up over all these years. Ooh, the resurrection. What you thought to be lost forever will come back and you'll witness the impossible made possible. So we had the reincarnation, we had the end and the resurrection. And he, like Calypso said, he really is kind of in a second life. Game over. They fear your wrath. They know you're no longer entertaining their half-hearted effort. So game over sounds like the end card, but also, something, an ending in a relationship. So was that his split with Wendy, or is this related to whatever the new interest is? Hopeful, they're opening themselves to love, allowing themselves to dream and plan because you give their life meaning. Again, that seems to feed that fairy tale card. Here we go, the mask. They want to remove the mask they've been wearing and be brave enough to reveal their true feelings. See, I think that's this mask of stone that, again, Rick has developed this hardness over the course of a long life. Temptation. Each day gets harder and harder to resist what they know in their heart to be true. They see you as their forbidden fruit. Yeah, there's a lot here that sounds very relationship driven, that keeping you a secret and the hotel, the fairy tale love and the temptations. There's something going on. Time spent in solitude, there's a solitude card, has given them a chance to get to know themselves better and set a more solid foundation. So put that over here with the new perspective. He's trying to find this balance. His higher self, his spirit keeps telling him, do these things, appreciate your life more, see your life with new perspective. He absolutely still struggles with it. Innocence. Your innocence and kind heart makes them love you, but they feel they must push you away to protect you from themselves. Again, Rick sabotages his own relationships because, he knows who he is, right? I think that's one thing that Rick doesn't struggle with. He knows who he is because he created who he is. And he chose to put that mantle on, and he's been wearing it for 50 years. So when he gets into a relationship, I think, if he truly cares and has this fairy tale love, whether that was his first wife or Wendy or, whoever he might be involved with now, there's a part of him that fears that darker side of himself doing not physical harm, but some emotional harm to a partner. Investigating. We just had the investigation card in the last deck. They're secretly snooping around and asking friends about you in order to see if you're dating someone new. Which the last deck was pretty clear, that's a yes. Coldness. Coldness goes with this stone mask. They feel you pulling away. They wish they can pull you back and convince you they're worth keeping. And potential. They're deep in their thoughts about you, realizing their distractions prevented them from seeing the potential in you. And you see all these moons in hand. I don't know. I mean, at this point, is Rick, does he really embody potential because of where he is in his life? There is still time for him to change and become different. We just had a lot of the discussion about this, that, his higher self wants him to change, but there are a lot of forces pulling in the other direction too. So I'm not surprised. It's a complicated story. I think the first two decks were very clear about Rick's past, but this final deck, because it's so much about relationships, the messages show a lot of uncertainty about where he currently is. But I think what my takeaway is Rick is carrying a lot of emotional baggage, right? We saw the envy, we saw the depression, the parenting card related to, you know, his children, but especially to the loss of Reed. But that whatever bargains he has made to have the life that he has does have a karmic price to it, and there is still time for him to connect with spirit and become a little more of his higher self. Calypso, do you want to say anything before we close this up?
Ooh, the mask is interesting. Fairy tale.
The mask with the stone and the coldness.
Mm-hmm. That investigating card showing up again.
Right?
Who is seriously watching Ric Flair? I don't know. He's being watched, though. That's for sure. The release, new perspective, solitude.
The release and
solitude
resurrection,
with
by the way.
Solitude with depression. Ooh, game over. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I think this is one of those readings I'm just going to stay out of, and I think it was a good reading. I enjoyed listening.
Well, thanks for that. I hope that you also enjoyed listening. We are Wrestling Tea Tarot. We very much appreciate you watching. Please do like, comment, hit that notification bell, and subscribe. Let us know, you know, your thoughts or feelings about Ric Flair, who else you'd like to see us read. Again, this has all been allegedly for entertainment purposes. Check out our other videos, and we will see you next time. Bye.